right. Well, at this time, we're going to call our meeting to order. Welcome all of you here this evening, as well as those here from the public. Appreciate you being here. And we always like to begin with a word of prayer. So, Ms. Henry, would you open us in prayer tonight?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, thank you for everything you've given us. Thank you for this beautiful day and the sunshine. Lord, I just ask that you guide each of us in our actions that we take tonight, and as we go out into the community and continue to represent our constituents. And I also ask that you keep all of our townships safe as we have the parade, and also the neighboring communities like Georgetown Township and the city of Wyoming and other communities that are having their parades as well, that everyone can stay safe. And I ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Seated. I ask our clerk to call the roll this evening.
Everyone's present but Mr. Belnick.
Okay, and I'll just say that Gary notified me this afternoon that he had a work job up north and so was unable to be with us. He did give me that heads up. All right. We have before you tonight the proposed agenda. Is there a motion to approve our agenda this evening?
So moved.
Support. All right, moved and supported. Anyone have any comments on our agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we've set the agenda for the meeting. I'm just getting my electronic version because it's got a lot of links in it. So, moment here. All right. I've asked Sergeant Coster if he would come this evening and just give us an update from the Sheriff's Office. He said he enjoys public speaking, and we enjoy hearing from you. Welcome you here tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you. How's everybody tonight?
Doing well.
Good. Well, sit back and relax. We'll be here for a little while. All right. So, introduction, I figured I'd start with myself. Since I have to talk up here, you might as well know a little bit about me. So, this is my career basically on a sheet. I started in 1994 with the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office. I'm currently assigned as the Georgetown Township Supervisor. And one of the other responsibilities that I have is I'm the Assistant Team Commander for our Critical Response Team, or the SWAT Team Tactical Team. If you look at all the things that I've done in my 25-plus year career, I've been around a little bit. Some more memorable things are my 8 years in the West Michigan Enforcement Team, 4 of which as an undercover narcotics detective and the other 4 as a supervisor. I've been General Road Patrol Sergeant, Community Policing Sergeant in Allendale prior to that, training sergeant for a number of years, and now being here in Georgetown. And it was by choice that I came to Georgetown. They actually asked me if I would be willing to come here, and I did agree to that.
All right.
So I come here by choice.
Good.
So it is a sought-after position. Some of the specialized training that I've had over the years is I actually now have 9 years of community policing. Again, my 8 years with the West Michigan Enforcement Team, 19 years on the TAC team. I'm an FBI certified sniper, graduate of the Northwestern University School of Staff and Command, which was a grueling 10 months. I'm also a firearms instructor for the department, patrol rifle instructor, tactical rifle instructor, active shooter response instructor, less lethal munitions instructor, distraction device instructor, chemical munitions instructor, taser instructor, munitions instructor, praise instructor, and I also teach fair and impartial policing for the department, and I'm an armorer. So that's just a short list of what I have, but figured I'd throw that out for you.
Wow.
So why we're really here today is to talk about all the things that you guys fund here in the township. So Just going to give you kind of a brief synopsis of each unit that we have in the township and then some of the other assets that we have, and then we'll go over some numbers. So as far as the E-unit program goes, we're unique in that there's only 3 townships in the county that have an E-unit program or a paramedic program. That's Georgetown, Holland, and Park Township. Holland and Park Township actually share the responsibility between the two for the paying of those deputies. So you have a 24-hour, 365-day paramedic coverage in the township. Again, there's 17 townships and 7 cities and villages in the county of Ottawa, and so you're unique in that fact. The unit paramedics provide a higher level of care than it can be provided by our road patrol deputies. The response times are faster than what usually an ambulance response time is. They have all the equipment and gear that an ambulance have, except for the cot, because they don't have room for that. The unit deputies are highly specialized in that they hold certifications and licensing in EMS and law enforcement. The certification that our medics hold above the paramedic certification are advanced cardiac life support, pediatric advanced life support, and trauma life support. And all of our medics that are currently assigned to the Georgetown office had prior careers as paramedics either at Life or AMR, or a combination thereof. The deputies that are currently working the Georgetown area are Deputy Dan Feckenauer with 36 years of experience, Deputy Randy Heaton with 30 years of experience, Deputy Macaulay O'Connor with 25 years, Deputy Larissa Jones with 23, Deputy Jeff Jones with 21, Deputy Brian Williams with 15, and Teresa Hartman with 10 years. And that's not just at the Sheriff's Office, that's in conjunction with their EMS time. Any questions on the paramedic unit? All right, we'll move on. Community policing. Georgetown Township employs 4 deputies in the community policing role. They're specifically assigned to community policing. Traditional policing is considered to be more reactionary process, where a call comes into the dispatch center, it's dispatched to the car goes and takes the call. With community policing, deputies take on more ownership in the areas that they work, with local leaders, business owners, schools, neighborhoods, and citizens, to identify problems or potential problems and come up with creative and innovative ways to deal with them. Community policing deputies still respond to dispatch calls, but they have the freedom to participate in the community events, special programs, teaching classes for students, teaching courses to community members, presentations to businesses, senior citizens, addressing quality of life issues, and selective enforcement for traffic issues. Our current community policing deputies are Deputy Adam Van Dis, Deputy Patrick Gideon, Deputy Brian Tucker, and Deputy A.J. Rietberg. All right.
Solely assigned to our township. Nope.
I'm sorry?
Solely
for our township. You know, they might stray once in a while if there's a hot call out of the area or things like that, but solely work Georgetown Township. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Pretty great. The next one I want to address is our school resource officers. Jenison Public School District employs 2 deputies in the school. Deputy Josh Blanton is assigned primarily to Jenison High School, and Deputy Scott Davis, who's primarily assigned to Jenison Middle School. Both deputies also make regular visits to the elementary school in the township. School resource officers stay highly visible in and around the schools and assist with proactive problem solving to prevent or limit significant events from occurring on school grounds. The SROs also carry criminal investigative caseloads resulting from crimes committed on various campuses. SROs are skilled in working with young people. Deputies attend many school academic and sporting events and act as mentors to students, sharing their knowledge of life skills. Deputies also participate in classroom activities such as teaching team, which is teaching, educating, mentoring, and they present on health and government-related issues. In addition, both Deputy Blanton and Deputy Davis have extended their interests and talents to after-school activities by becoming the assistant football coaches in their school districts. Deputy Blanton is the assistant coach for the freshman team at the high school, and Deputy Davis is the assistant coach for the 7th graders. We also have several of our Hudsonville public schools in Georgetown Township, and Hudsonville also has a deputy assigned to them. That's Deputy Ryan Potma, and he works in those assigned schools as needed. but he's also assisted by Deputy Van Diss, who teaches a lot of the teen classes in the Hudsonville School District for Deputy Potma.
Ryan Pop, is that son of Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
The next one that everybody loves the most is the traffic services. That's the black car that you see running around, the black car with the silver decals, because now all of Ottawa County cruisers are going to the black as the color of the car, but they're going to have different decals on them. Currently, Georgetown has one traffic car, and that's Deputy Joe Mishmerheisen. Deputy Mishmerheisen deals with high traffic volumes, mornings and afternoons, along with high amount of traffic crashes. Thank you. Deputy Mishmerheisen tries to focus on high crash areas for enforcement as well as traffic complaints that come into the office. Traffic enforcement is a position that requires an individual who is highly self-motivated with the ability to identify traffic flow and how it shifts so that they can be most effective. They also must have great people skills. Joe is writing probably between 10 and 20 tickets a day, and he does not end up in court very often because he has that people skills. They also take on additional training in traffic crash science and reconstruction, as well as being a resource to the area deputies and traffic-related incidents and enforcement. Traffic services works closely with fire and traffic-related issues resulting from crashes and other incidences. Deputy Mishmerheisen also worked with the Traffic Services Sergeant Mike Vandenbosch to organize high-visibility traffic enforcement details in the county, including the one that took place on May 19th in Georgetown Township, that resulted in 118 citations and 9 misdemeanor arrests. And that was primarily focused on Cottonwood and Chicago Drive. Additional resources that we have available to us through the Sheriff's Office, the township funded units that we have, that we've discussed. We also have 2 detectives that are assigned to the Georgetown area as primarily the detectives for our area for major incidences and case assignment. The detectives assigned to our area are Detective Bridget Schickinger and Detective David DeWitt. The detectives investigate a variety of major cases, including homicide, criminal sexual conduct, assaults, major thefts, white-collar crimes, suicides, B&Es, and auto thefts. Detectives are also a valuable asset to township deputies in their investigations as needed. The deputies can call them up and ask them questions, ask them how they should approach suspects on interviews and things like that, so they're a valuable resource there. In addition to the detectives, the investigative unit has a crime data analyst and a forensic science evidence technician. We also have 4 full-time deputies that work out of the Georgetown office. They're assigned to just more than Georgetown, but they do have 24-hour coverage in the area. They're the primary call cars for the area. And those 4 deputies, we have 1 on each day squad and 1 on each night squad, and they cover Georgetown, Jamestown, Blendon, Zeeland, and Allendale townships. So they don't spend primarily most of their time here in Georgetown, but they do have that as a responsibility.
What are they principally doing, those 4?
Those 4 are principally responding to calls. That's pretty much their job. They're the road patrol. You won't see them at many of the special events and things like that because their primary responsibility is taking calls. Other things that we have at our disposal, we have 4 canine units in the department, 2 day shifters and 2 night shifters. We have the ability to use the West Michigan Enforcement Team, or WEMET, as needed, the Ottawa County Dive Team, the Ottawa County Critical Response Team, the Ottawa County Records Division, Animal Control, Emergency Management, Friend of the Court Investigators. In addition to the deputies that several of our deputies in Georgetown have secondary jobs, if you will, that they do for the Sheriff's Office. Some of them are field training officers. That would be Pat Gideon, Mac O'Connor, and Brian Williams. We have department trainers, Randy Heaton and Larissa Jones. Evidence technicians, Deputy Jeff Jones, Mac O'Connor, Scott Davis, and traffic reconstructionist, Deputy Joe Mishmerheisen, and dive team member Brian Tucker. So these guys are, they're really taking these jobs and going elsewhere with them. It should also be noted that all the unit positions in Georgetown Township are bid yearly, so the deputies have a choice where they want to work. They can either work here, they can work in Holland Park, and the ones that we showed you on the board choose to work here because they can bid it. And all the community policing positions and traffic services position are assignment, but they're based off requests by the deputies. So the deputies that we have working here actually want to be here. They take ownership and they do a very fine job. Some of the areas of concern that we've identified, per the Michigan State Police Traffic Crash Reporting System, the High Crash Intersection Report, that report was dated January 1st. 2021 through March 31st of 2021. Of the top 20 intersections in Ottawa County, Georgetown has 5 of those, and 3 of them are in the top 10. In fact, we hold the #1 spot. Anybody want to take a guess?
8th Avenue.
Nope.
Baldwin and Cottonwood.
Baldwin and Cottonwood. That's the #1 spot. In that spot, we took 13 crashes in that time period. Another traffic concern that we've been having is the number of school bus violations that have occurred in Georgetown Township. Deputy Mishmerheisen and the area community policing deputies are aware and have been monitoring as time allows. They've been following the buses around as they get behind them. They'll just follow them through their bus route and see if they can catch anybody. And they have caught quite a few. In 2020 and the first 2 months of 2021, traffic numbers have been significantly lower than years past. Most of this can be attributed to COVID-19. As there's been less traffic on the roads and deputies have been encouraged to follow the CDC and health department guidelines. It is my belief, however, that those numbers will come back up to more normal, consistent level in the near future. With the start of warmer weather, we again would encourage our residents to lock their cars that are parked out in the garage or out in the driveways, and also shut your garage doors and lock your garage doors. As you know, with the warmer weather, we're going to start getting more larcenies from motor vehicles and out of garages. The other thing that we really look at is fraud complaints. They're an ever-present danger for everybody. So if you get a cold call and you didn't request anybody to call you and ask for your information, don't give them your information, please. That's a big headache for you and for us, really. I just wanted to give a quick review of the 2020 Georgetown Annual Report. It came out 2 weeks ago, I believe now. The Georgetown deputies responded to 9,027 incidences in 2020, and we made 874 arrests. We wrote 2,369 citations and responded to 784 traffic crashes, 2 of which were fatal in 2020. For reported violent crimes, we had 15 criminal sexual conduct, 7 robberies, 23 aggravated assaults, and for reported property crimes, we had a total of 54 burglaries, 231 larcenies, 24 motor vehicle thefts, and 5 arsons. In 2020, Georgetown units responded to 1,247 emergency medical calls and 751 non-emergency calls. For a total of 1,998 calls. Of all calls that Georgetown units responded to, 1,908 emergency calls and 3,545 non-emergency calls for a total of 5,453 calls. That's just for the units. Any questions?
How does that compare to the other municipalities that township?
We're pretty much the second highest across the board. Holland Township ekes us out by quite a bit.
But I mean, per capita?
We're rate average.
Okay.
And how many, you said it was 13 crashes at the intersection of Baldwin and Cottonwood.
Yep.
January
1st through March 31st of this year. The other intersections were Baldwin and Main Street. That was number 4 on the list with 8 crashes. Chicago Drive in Maine with 5 crashes was 9th. 36th in Baldwin with 4 crashes was 17th. And 28th in Baldwin was 19th with also 4 crashes.
So Baldwin is on all of our 5 that are in the top.
Yeah, except for, I guess Chicago Drive in Maine is really Baldwin ended, but Baldwin's a busy street. 15,000 plus cars that go down that thing every day. A lot of traffic. Anything else?
Sergeant Coster, excellent detailed report. Great graphics.
I can't take responsibility for the graphics because I actually am not any good at that. Technology and I don't get along at all. I like to write things down. So actually Deputy Jeff Jones helped me out.
Okay.
I gotta give him his props.
We occasionally are contacted by residents to say, such and such is occurring. Oftentimes it's traffic related.
Oh yeah.
Even though I'm sure there are larcenies and things of that kind. Would you prefer those are directed right to our was it Mishmerheisen?
No, you can direct them to me.
To you? Okay.
Yeah, because, he might not be on and it might be something that's pressing, so I'd just soon get it out sooner rather than later, and I can direct the community policing officers to take care of traffic issues if Deputy Mishmerheisen's off. And for any of you, if you need to get a hold of me for anything or if you want to talk to me about anything, both Rod and Dan have my direct line. I mean, you can call me anytime. We can sit down and talk about whatever concerns you have. I don't have an issue with that.
Have you noticed over this past year any growing disrespect or any threatened or actual violence against you?
I would say we're very blessed on where we're at. Very much supported here in Georgetown Township, and it's really been noticed. I mean, we still have weekly people that'll stop at the office, drop off a dozen donuts or cookies or homemade cookies, we have people dropping off stuff at the office all the time. So we really appreciate the support that we have. A lot of the guys that work here come to work here because everybody waves to you with all their fingers. Because we don't have that everywhere. Hate to say it, but it doesn't happen everywhere like that. So we are blessed to be here.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Respect you guys.
Thank you.
No?
I would just say we're truly blessed to have Ottawa County Sheriff's Department in Georgetown. You guys do a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
And Jeff left some big shoes to fill, and you've done a phenomenal job.
He does. Yeah, he's a big fella, so.
And I like how he did the deputies in the parks for lunch and breaks.
Yep.
Kind of keep an eye out, and you're doing the school buses, following the route. That's
And
great stuff. Good for the
We've
community.
been assigning all the community policing officers to the parks because I really want that contact there. I want them out of their cars and talking to the people that are at the parks. And, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can be very positive.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sergeant Coster. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go to item number 8, which are communication letters and reports received for information.
I do have a slight correction on the minutes for the utilities meeting. It's on the very first page. It just indicates at the top that I was absent, but then later on you'll see my voting. So I don't know if we could just add that I arrived at 4:04 p.m. so that there's no, but I'm talking about at the top. It just says that I was absent.
Sure. We'll correct that at the utility committee meeting.
What's that?
We're not approving those here, but we'll fix that at the utility meeting.
Oh, we haven't. Oh, have we done that before? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was thinking we didn't do that in
Right.
the meeting.
Yeah, we'll
so.
fix it right there.
Okay. Well, if anybody had confusion about that when reading it, there you go. I was there.
All right. Good. First public comment period. So anyone here this evening that would like to speak to any of the items remaining on our agenda, this would be your time to step forward and address the board. There will be a second public comment period later in the meeting for any items not on the agenda. So, yes, sir. You would state your name and your address.
My name is Dan Skolton. I live at 7792 Schoolside Drive, Hudsonville. And my neighbors here are concerned of the Hudsonville Public School adding addition onto their properties and how they drain the water. I've lived there since 98, and we've had to have the county back there at least 10 to 12 times to look at the flooding issues that we have each spring or a major rain. So we're concerned that any more water getting down in that direction, we're going to flood over because in '98 when that subdivision was started, I was the first house there, and I had two neighbors that were in the middle of being built. The water flooded over and went into the basements. And there's I can picture 8 times I've had to decide if I had to do sandbags because the water gets so high and it's rushing through there fast. They put initially when they did the elementary school, they built a detention pond, but right now that pond doesn't do anything for the new middle school or the ball fields that they've just made ditches and made it directly input right straight to there's a batch of woods behind us that consider now wetlands, but it does not hold in any ponds. It just directly goes straight to our backyards into a drainage ditch that the county had put in the '99 or 2000, I forget which one, because of the complaining. And that was supposed to have been a 30-year rain. That thing floods over every year. So it does not hold, and we can't take any more water from that direction. So we're hoping that with this new addition, they would be able to redirect it towards north somehow, or one big retention pond. They got to hold it. If you want to see, I got pictures. I was not planning on coming tonight, so thank you, Brian, for calling us. We've got pictures the neighbors have submitted to us about their backyards flooding. I've got a video of my son 3 years ago kayaking back in the woods because it was so high and rushing so that he could just take a kayak back there in a woods and make it down a stream. So we're concerned, and we wanted to bring you attention up to that because we don't know who the highest level. The DEQ sent us this letter, and that's what started us sending you a letter to say, hey, we want to let you know what's going on too. Township Water Department he just lets it go, but it's a concern. And then if you cross over on school side, there's 3 big cauldrons that go underneath the road, and there's times that those are full. All 3 of them are topped, and then it continues to go down. There's a backup, and it just can't drain fast enough. So if they have any other comments, I'll let them know.
Do others have
Thank you.
along those lines? Sure. You want to pick up where you left off? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott Impens. I live at 7704 Schoolside Drive, and just to kind of echo some of the points that were made with regard to the flooding, since my wife and I have lived in the house, we actually live on the south side of the creek, where he had just mentioned that the water goes through the 3 culverts. Every spring, we'll have at least 2 or 3 heavy rainfalls where the level of the water going through that creek goes up to about 3/4, almost full to the culverts. And there's been 2 occasions over the last few years where I've had to call the township and ask them to come out and actually remove debris that actually floods down from further upstream. The biggest concern that we have, specifically for the location of our house, is that we have 2 merging points that come together that directs the flow of water right underneath school side. So the current runs behind our house and to the north side of our house. I think they should take a look at how they're going to divert this water, because there is a big concern about flooding in the area. That's all I can say. Thank you.
My name's Brian Knott. I live at 7778 Schoolside Drive, right next to Dan. I've lived there for 8 years, and the flooding has been a concern of mine since I moved in, because I moved from Grand Rapids, where I lived in a neighborhood where all the backyards flowed into my backyard, and I got flooded out once there, so I moved out of the city into a nicer area. But my very first spring there, I literally had 2 to 3 inches of water in my backyard from the drainage ditches overflowing from the water. The main concern is the school's property is on a slight incline from north flowing to the south and west. They have numerous soccer fields, football stadium, baseball fields, numerous softball fields, and now they want to put I think 2 or 3, maybe even 4 new buildings back there. All that water needs to be diverted somewhere, and the natural lay of the land is right into our backyards. I've taken walks with my kids through the woods area in the spring. If you go back there with anything less than 12-inch high rubber boots on, you're not going to make it out dry, because the whole woods is one solid creek or wetland moving to it'd be the south and west, away from the school's property towards this drainage ditch that they put in, I don't know when, before my time there, and away from the actual retention pond that they put behind the elementary school. They have, that's actually built up, and the water diverts around the drainage pond into our backyards / drainage ditch. And there have been times, I saw it a couple years ago when Dan's son and his friend were dragging kayaks all the way up into basically where the middle school softball field is now, 40 yards into the woods there. There's some type of swamp pond thing that's where they started, and they kayaked all the way down to where their houses were, where they had to basically portage around school side, and they got back in and cruised on into the pond / lake thing that's on the west side of school side there. So it's just the water's a major concern because it gets wet back there, and it gets wet back there quick, where if we get a major rain like we had 7 or 8 years ago, and I think the township had flooding all over the place. I'm sure you guys got all the drone footage you need to see all that water. If they put all those buildings back there, and I think there's more athletic fields going back there, it's going to flood us out. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. So I just wanted to let it be known, and hopefully we can solve the problem before it happens. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, as this is, just for your benefit, as this is not a time for direct dialogue with the board, but to rather take your input, I'd be happy to begin a dialogue with you after the meeting if you'd like, all right? If you're here yet, or any one of you. We're going to close then the initial public comment period and move on to item 10, our consent agenda. Is there a motion among the board to approve our consent agenda?
So moved.
Support. Okay, does anyone wish to remove an item from the agenda this evening? Comments? All right. Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Item 10 is approved. Item 11 then. This is the proposed ordinance to change from rural residential to low density residential for a pretty good sized piece of land there along Fillmore. I expect everyone's read the staff report and various documents with that. So, to begin the dialogue, it would be nice if someone would place a motion before us.
I would make a motion to adopt the staff report as finding of fact and to approve the resolution as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Support? Under support. Okay. Dialogue among the board. Concerns, questions, comments. I know one thing as I look through it, I'm just continually concerned about the bigger picture, right? And the compelling aspect of this is that what they're requesting is consistent with our master plan. I think all of you sitting here would say, well, I wasn't part of that process and didn't set that plan, and you will indeed be a part of it this next time around, but it is consistent, and therefore I understand the Planning Commission's decision. I just look forward to the dialogue that can occur the next time we master plan, because I see that number of residences in a beautiful area, no question about that. It's going to be probably quite nice back in there. I've often thought, and you maybe have too, as you drive through that part of the township, it seems somewhat pristine yet, and you know, the topography is nice, and the woods and all the rest. But I keep thinking, okay, now all those cars are flowing through Cottonwood or, you know, roundabout to Baldwin, and how much at some point is the funnel up here, you know, with the hose or the hole down here? It's like we keep pouring in the top, but this is just more cars in a beautiful area and a good vision and consistent with the master plan. So I don't think I have a basis, quite honestly, to oppose. I just hope that we will be thoughtful in our master plan review to say, okay, what is our vision for the density, right? Because we can build doesn't mean we should we should encourage, zoning to fill it up. But that's my only comment. Anyone else on this proposed change?
No, I'd just comment to your comment about the traffic. I guess the good part is with Grand Valley having their downtown campus, a lot of students are taking Lake Michigan Drive, which kind of affected our flow patterns, thinking 48th would be a big corridor for Grand Valley students.
Right.
Cottonwood always has been, but I think we've seen numbers drop because students either need transit or using Lake Michigan Drive to get to Grand Rapids. So
that's true.
Filling that void.
That's true, and they've studied that. That's true. I mean, that's where they're flowing, right, back and forth through there more than they used to. Yeah, that is a good thing. Anyone? All right.
One aspect that I liked was the fact that they're running that road parallel with Fillmore. So then you don't have the additional driveways coming onto Fillmore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one entrance on that.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like actually one, maybe two right there. So.
Yeah. Okay. I know the developer is picking up the utility cost, and it would be a sizable endeavor. All right. Well, it's a roll call vote. Now, let's our clerk. Ms. Henry.
Yes.
Ms. Steele.
Yes.
Mr. Schwam.
Yes.
Treasurer.
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. And supervisor.
Yes. All right. So that's everyone. It's passed. 7-0, or 6-0 rather, with Jerry's absence. We'll move on then to item number 12. This is the requested letter for Hudsonville Schools. I imagine that's what those who spoke tonight had in mind when they were thinking of an agenda item. Albeit I think their concerns are larger than this one letter. Is there a motion, first of all, one way or another, to place this before the board?
I'll make the motion to approve the letter authorizing the waiver of the no comment period with Eagle regarding the construction of an interior driveway between buildings on the Baldwin Street campus as recommended by Finance Committee.
I'll support that. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's been moved and supported. I'll say as one who's on the Finance Committee, this is one that we approved unanimously. It is a more narrow question, I think, than what was raised tonight through public comment, having to do with more just standing down, if you will, with respect to their application with Eagle, as it's called now. Eagle's pretty vigilant themselves with these matters and much more knowledgeable and much more, might say, potentially intrusive or regulated. So they will certainly put them through their paces, but as a township, it's essentially taken a position of no position on that drive and that particular wetland question. The question of buildings and additional fields and the like is not so much implicated by this specific letter, albeit you could say if they couldn't drive on certain drives and configure things in that way with that drive that they may be hindered in their easy use or access of what they intend to construct. But nevertheless, I think it's something that I would support as simply taking no position, not wishing to object or push for approval. Anyone else?
I would just say it was my understanding that in the Finance Committee, it was recommended to the board to discuss, not an approval from, I checked the minutes and it just said, recommended, approving. Yep. Just because I had the concerns of, well, in finance, you were there, you remember, I concerned that they get to jump the line. Like any developer would have to wait and go through the process. So I just looked at it from that standpoint of not rush it through. And one of my concerns was public input and were the public notified. And then it was just a few days after we got a letter from residents that were concerned. So that was one of those ones. I'm glad we slowed it down a little bit to at least discuss it with the board to find out what the impacts. Now, that's a Water Resource Commission issue, a DEQ issue, or an Eagle issue. But I think it's fair for the residents to have a voice or give their opinion at the township level, since they are residents of Georgetown. So, and be on record too that if there are, repercussions due to flooding or whatever, that it was made known from the get-go.
Sure. Were you now in saying that, I think that we're somewhat limited in our authority in the situation, but that we certainly welcome the input of the public, as well as the ability that we have as trustees to pass that comment along and give input to those who do have that authority, whether it be at the county level or even with Eagle. I know the rebuttal, for whatever it's worth, for those who aren't in finance, the rebuttal, I think, was that this is the time in which to construct in between the end of the school year and the beginning of the next. And we would be a hold up to that window, if you will. So I know that was concern as well, is them needing to hit that window when kids are not around.
I have a comment on this. I'm not on the finance committee, but even just, it's one thing to read the request. I mean, on this, I believe we just have the one sheet of paper. I could be wrong about that, but it's another thing to, be able to hear in person from residents that we have. And, I hear the concern. I'm a mother of 4, so kid number 2 just graduated from high school last week. So it's the timing thing I totally understand, and any kind of construction projects you would want on a school property to happen during the summer where you have less traffic and there's going to be less incidents, less inconvenience for the families. I get that, but we're talking about, in theory, a potential, one time, however that may be, in length of time, but one time inconvenience versus, if I'm hearing their concerns correctly, a permanent issue of flooding. Now, I realize that we're not voting on approving the construction and all the buildings and everything else like that, but this is a piece to the puzzle. So to me, although we don't have authority, as you mentioned, we are, given a period of time to have comment as a township to be submitted. And so, just as a general idea, I guess my thought would be along the lines of what, Mike, what you were saying with, I forget how you worded it, but basically jumping ahead or jumping, in terms of, if one of them had made a request that needed the same kinds of permissions, how likely is it that that would be something we would do is allow that time period to be cut short for public comment. So when it's not a member of the public or a resident that's doing something, or a business owner that's doing something that needs that approval, but a school within the township, it seems like that's the kind of thing where we really need to make sure we're doing our part to let their voices be heard. And, it's only a few people. Again, it sounds like, and I'm just going off the limited information that was, shared tonight. I don't remember seeing a letter or email that was mentioned, but from you guys. But anyway, if you were just told from DEQ or Eagle or whatever in a recent letter about there's this, issue going on, and one of you mentioned that there was some confusion about which government entity you're supposed to go to have your voice heard on all these concerns. I know for me, I get super frustrated when I call any government office and it's all like, oh, no, it's not our department, it's them, or it's not, my commissioner, it's not my government entity, it's that one. So anything that we can do to make sure that we're securing a loud enough voice for the people that we represent, I think we should do that. And I would love to maybe even have a special meeting on this particular issue, really advertising it just to hear and see what the concerns are, how many residents have that concern, hear from both sides. If there's residents that are thinking we should do this, or if it's just the school that's, thinking, well, it's more convenient for us, we'd like to do that. I guess that would be my thought, is that we owe it to the residents to really hear it out and not have it be just another avenue that the door is shut before they realize it's been opened to have their voice heard.
Can we add one more thing onto that? The letter I think that Ryan received just recently was actually the notification that the public made their comments to Eagle. And we got a copy of their letter, correct?
Got a copy as well as 8 households that signed onto it with information.
Right. So the public did contact the right body. They were notified by Eagle, I'm assuming, and they contacted Eagle. The letter we received was just copying us on their contact. So I think it is going to the right place. And they were just, based on us having this letter coming here, has to be some communication there, letting us know that they have some concerns and they've already expressed them to Eagle. So.
Well, and I get that, and without the benefit of having read the letter or knowing anything else about that, I guess, and I'm hoping that you guys will go like this if I'm wrong about my hearing on this, but from what I'm hearing, there's still this overarching confusion about who can really do something. So if there's anything that we can do, even if it's some of the same concerns voiced, but we hear that even more residents in the township might have some of the same concerns, or the other side, maybe that's the only 8 people in the whole township that feel that way, and then there's 800 that show up and say, no, we think they should do whatever, this whole project, including the driveway or whatever specific questions that we're being asked to comment on. It just seems like something like this where we're already hearing a concern. We should at least hear it out and determine if it's something that's, whatever the specific tiny question in front of us is, are we doing everything we can to make sure our residents have all the voice that they can have on that issue?
Maybe along those lines, Dan, could you elucidate from our meeting, or Ryan, you were there too, if this letter weren't signed, give the flip side. As if the letter isn't tendered, the result is X.
I think that the public gets a certain comment period. They were all notified for their comment period. I'm not sure when that closed. I think they were all notified, those who were in the affected area. Then the township gets a comment period after that. You simply don't have to do this letter. If you're not comfortable with it, don't worry about it. The comment period will just roll. Then Eagle will make their decision based on the comments they've heard. So I think it makes the most sense for the public to express their comments directly, for sure. And if it goes through this body as well, that they should make a comment directly to Eagle, since you don't have any decision-making authority in this whatsoever, except for sharing any concerns or comments that you have with Eagle as well. Then they will make the decision when the comment period is closed. The school is just trying, if we didn't have any comments, or if we did, get the comments quicker, as opposed to, I think it's a 45-day window? Okay. Great. So.
Well, I'm kind of,
we're already 15 days into the 45-day clock, so I'm just saying if you don't want to do this letter, just don't do it. Just stop and move on to the next item and leave the comment window open.
The most, if I am hearing you correctly, the most that it would do at this point is speed things up on the project by 30 days.
Correct.
Okay.
Because the comment period is going to close then anyway, so.
I was going to make a motion, but I realized she made the motion on the table, so I was just trying to process how that would.
Sure. Ryan, any thoughts?
Pretty much reiterating kind of what Michael and Catherine said. Nothing against the school, but I do feel like it needs to have the public allow a little bit more time. And I don't know if they've had to submit a plan of what they were going to do with that area as far as expanding on that retention pond or any future plans to at least put them at rest.
Well, there's a little confusion. People confuse the Water Resource Commission of Ottawa County, and they confuse that when they said our water department. They generally are referring to the Water Resource Commission of Ottawa County when they're talking about that. Our water department gives the water you drink. And so that's the kind of what we're doing. County's Water Resource Commission handles the water outflows. We may, however, have helped in a disaster cleaning out pipes, but usually that's the Water Resource Commission as well. I'm not saying we wouldn't have jumped there and could get there quicker and stop some flooding. Certainly our crews would do whatever we need to do during certain times, but That's generally that applications are held. I believe the public comment period, they had their period, and it's just then the township gets the next one to address. But schools aren't subject to our zoning, aren't subject to our approvals, aren't subject to those areas as far as, you know, our authority. So
I think from the sounds of things, it's at best a split, and I would ask, Becky, would you be interested in withdrawing your motion?
That's fine with me. I was just trying to keep the conversation going.
I appreciate that. You just want to put it on the floor to get it started. Yep. No, I appreciate that.
I will withdraw my motion.
I'm not sure, again, what the appropriate method for this would be, but realizing that before us there's an option of, as a township, to either not make a comment or to go ahead and have comments submitted on this. This is where I'm kind of eyeing at you, Dan, to see, given the situation and your experience at the township, if what normally would happen, but my thought is that I should possibly make a motion that we have some sort of special meeting with the public to see if there is some sort of comment that we want to end up making out of the concerns we've heard thus far, or those that we might not have heard yet.
If you're creating a forum, you're going to first create an expectation that you actually can do something, and you can only simply forward their comments. I think if we wanted to do that, we would just be a conduit and say we received these comments, and not have to have a special meeting. They can just submit their comments to us, and we'd reiterate them if that's what you're trying to accomplish. We would share those same comments anyway, since other than expressing concerns and how this is going to alleviate it, recognizing they're coming with an engineer, and the engineer is going to most likely say, yes, there's a problem. We didn't cause the problem. Yes, this development takes it and reduces the problem or doesn't expand the problem, certainly. And so that's the argument that the Eagle then is going to evaluate and saying, is this making the problem worse or making the problem better? And so that's the ultimate part that they're going to have to evaluate.
I understand all that. I guess to me, though, it's our job to hear from our residents, and I feel like as a township, if there's a purpose of having township comment on anything, it's never just any individual, it's not supposed to be any of our individual comments, but what we think is for the greater good of the community. And I feel like based on what I heard tonight, I'm extremely concerned. It's great that we got a new resident because he, didn't like the flooding in his property in Grand Rapids and then came out here and unfortunately was flooded. If there's anything we can do, even if it's just to put a little bit of effort into hearing more concerns, I just want to make sure too, the flip side, if it's the 8 houses and those are the only people that are concerned about it, I wouldn't even want to necessarily make the effort to hammer that point if it's disproportionate to the other people that would be affected if they don't see the issue the same way. So I understand that's not what you're suggesting that I, do. My question is more procedural in nature. To me, that's being able to have a small period of time where we can just tell the community this is what we're looking to do. We're hoping to hear specifically from people in this affected area, one way or another. I just feel like we owe it to them to make sure we're given the whole picture, so that we know if we are going to do anything, either way, that it's not But I feel like we need to better understand more of the consensus of the residents in that area. I personally don't have a feeling either way. To me, I understand that public comment time, the Eagle had public comment time, and that public comment time is over, but we still have a job that we have to do either way. Either way, we're making a decision. If we choose to not submit a comment, we're still making a decision. So are we serving our residents best by not making a decision or not submitting a comment? I guess that's kind of where my thought is. So as far as procedurally, I don't know off the top of my head. I can't even remember if it's a special meeting, I guess the time frames are shorter and it's the only purpose. I don't know. That would be my.
What if we have another board meeting within the window of time that remains, and that we make provision at that meeting to receive additional comments as we did this evening, and that we would agree to pass along the comments we've received thus far, as well as those we would yet receive, and to add to that, on behalf of the board, the encouragement that these comments be taken seriously, that these are things that are deeply felt by those who've expressed those comments, and we would hope that they would pay careful attention in their planning, thereby not more or less taking the stand as a board to say, we agree with these people and not with those, as much as to say, these are people who took time to give input, and it's important that you pay attention to what they had to say and give it its due, respect or something to that effect.
So our first meeting in June is just
Yeah.
to have it as an agenda item?
Yeah.
And that's within the time frame, you said?
To Dan's point, I think the concern in how that would be listed would be not to create the false expectation that we are a body that would have the ability to rule,
correct,
as much as to hear comments that have already perhaps been made to Eagle and simply repeat them or forward them on to that body through the township as well.
Jim, would it be appropriate to, I was surprised by the letter that if something is quite important, all the school districts send a representative that evening and explain normally to the board and to the public what's going on. I don't think they expected this.
They didn't expect this. They didn't.
Right. So I think that surprised me that they
wouldn't have asked for this at all if they thought there would be any issue with this whatsoever. They wouldn't have asked us to walk down this road at all.
But maybe we should avail them because it's gotten to this point, an opportunity to come if they'd like and state their feelings. And it seems like this fits in with Joe Bush with the Drain Commission. And as Dan had said, we have very little to do as far as the flow of water. Virtually everything has to run through Ottawa County. Our crews might help unclog some drains and stuff like that, but otherwise we don't have a staff for that. So it seems like this is an Ottawa County issue, but I do like the idea of putting it on our agenda, and maybe we discuss it the next time.
So we're not a deliberative body, and I would hate to mislead anyone to come. And we've had rooms packed. We've even moved off-site before for certain issues. This ought not be one of those, because I think people would feel in some respects later that they maybe didn't use their time well. I think if they understood the limited nature of our authority or extent of authority, then they'd be welcome, obviously, to come and for either side and to say, I just want you to know as one of your residents, this is how I feel. I either expressed it or I didn't already to Eagle, but I want you to know either way. And if you would pass along the fact of my comment to them, I'd appreciate it. Something to that effect. And we would encourage them to take it with all due seriousness. Yeah.
Since we haven't made a decision yet, we're not prepared for these answers tonight. I apologize for that. We're not expecting this. So what if there's an opportunity to request Eagle to conduct a public hearing as opposed to this board conducting the public hearing? As an alternative, if they would do that as part of our request.
Sure.
So the township comment would be to request them to hold a public hearing.
So what they've received thus far has only been in writing. It wasn't at a public.
Correct. They didn't have a public hearing for the residents? Correct? Okay. So they request. I'm just saying, I don't know
like
if that's
that,
an alternative.
That's the body most affected.
Well, right, and if they could do that and hold that locally.
I made the assumption, I guess, that it was a public hearing at which they gave their comments, but
right, they
apparently not.
And that's why we got a copy. I think you got a copy of that letter. And you just showed it to me a few moments ago, but.
Wouldn't that be a better use of our?
I don't know if they'll do it, but then the alternative, we would hold one if they didn't. I'm just saying there's an alternative.
Yeah, so I guess I would say, and I'm still thinking if it needs to be a motion, I guess it probably should, as far as an agenda item, excuse me, that, in the next, whatever is appropriate, business day or two, so there's timeliness on it, that we get a letter or email or whatever out to Eagle and ask them to hold a public hearing, specifically notifying the residents so that there is the most appropriate body that's hearing it, but if they choose not to do so, then and we don't have confirmation by the time we have our next hearing, or our next meeting, that it would be an item on our agenda with clarification that we don't have any decision-making authority, but to collect comments to be able to submit our own comments as a township to the decision-making authority, which is Eagle in the matter. So that would be my motion. And not that I'd be opposed to the school being here. I think public comment is public comment. So school representative, just parents whatever. So whether it's parents of the children that go to the school or other residents that just disagree with them or residents that agree with them, whomever, I think, all would be invited as, members of the public to come and and speak on that. Again, just an item on the agenda is fine. I'm just trying to think of the best way to do that. So hopefully that clarification was okay. That would be my motion, to incorporate Dan's suggestion, and then the fallback is if we have comment here at our next meeting if they don't confirm that they will do that.
Support. Okay. Been moved and supported. Discussion about the motion, the new motion now that's before the board.
I think that works. And I was just going to say, I think it is a township issue, and if the letter wasn't important, they wouldn't be asking for it. So obviously there is some value or some power in that letter. So I think it's a good motion, and I like it. Open communication and
be free, or any one of us would, to make certain that someone at Hudsonville understood that this comment.
Oh, we'll take care of that.
Okay, very good. All right. All right. So with that motion, discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, and it's carried. Item number 13, Planning Commission appointment. Is there a motion to approve Michael Moores to take the current vacant position on the Planning Commission?
Motion to confirm supervisor's appointment of Michael Morris to the currently vacant position on the Planning Commission with the term expiring on December 31st, 2021, as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Discussion?
I will come on record right away. This is my brother-in-law, but he is very qualified for this position. He's a veteran, small business owner right here in Georgetown Township. He owns veteran home inspections, so that'd be a very nice addition to the Planning Commission, as well as he's a realtor. His kids attend Denison Public Schools, and I think he's a great addition. Gives a great new, fresh voice to the Planning Commission.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm just thankful to see, someone who has served our country and our community, who owns a business, who's willing to set aside even more time to serve in this way, because, it's not like the Planning Commission pays. I've served on one for 5 or 6 or 7, something, anyway, in my last community. And those years I spent on that, there was a lot of time and a lot of commitment, and there's a lot of, it's not like some committees or commissions where it's, you potentially have more of smaller chunks that you got to look at. The packets you get can be overwhelming, and you're looking at a lot of different things and documents and a lot of legal implications. So for somebody to be willing to do that, brother-in-law or not, I was just reading and going,
And for what it's worth, we put the request out there for applications. Just so you know, we received 2. I interviewed both of them at length. Also sought out someone that I knew was fairly new to the community, but very capable, and had breakfast with that person. Was very positively impressed, and then found out they lived just over the line into Blendon. So at any rate, so we had 2 to choose from, both of whom I think would have been qualified, and I think Mr. Moores is well qualified. So
I would just comment that we've got a phenomenal Planning Commission, really rock solid, common sense people. And I don't know if Ryan told him or not, but it pays about $2 an hour after you spend all the time. So Ryan may be an ex-brother-in-law in the future here, but just good to have fresh faces, new ideas, and people from the private sector that understand that role.
Mm-hmm. Jim, who were the 2 candidates?
The other candidate was Rich Vanderklot.
Okay. And who else?
And Mr. Morris.
Okay.
Yeah. The other person I spoke with, as I say, turned out not to be a resident. But and we waited a while even after those 2 interviews, seeking additional applicants just to make sure that we were fair.
I have a question.
I've talked, by the way, I talked at length with Rich as well as followed up with him.
I'm surprised. Rich seems like he'd be a slam dunk. Served for many years. With Greg Honder passing away, that was really a driving force and a lot of wisdom. And then we had Tim Smith here that stepped down. We've lost a lot of history, and Rich had a passion for it and did an incredible job. of course, served the board for many, many years. Before that, he was on the school board. I would think he'd be the obvious choice that would bring stability. I'm surprised he didn't get it. Was it a unanimous vote?
Unanimous vote. We didn't vote.
On the finance committee didn't vote?
Yeah, we discussed and made a recommendation here, but I obviously was impressed with both. I know Rich's past experience and his capabilities. When we came to know Michael's through interview and resume.
This is a confirmation vote.
Yeah.
So it's the supervisor's appointment. This one is, so it's accepting or not accepting his appointment.
Okay, but he asked for questions and
But I'm just saying, it's his appointment that brings it to you.
But I appreciate your affirmation of Rich, and we were grateful to receive two qualified applicants for this position, because sometimes we don't even get but one, if that. So, as you say, as people have pointed out, it takes time out of people's lives, and not that we don't have capable people in the community, but they have to decide where to allocate their time. And so,
Jim, I just have a quick question. I want to make sure I'm not misleading the public, albeit on a very small statement I made, but if I heard correctly, one of the two of you, maybe it was you, Mike, that you mentioned that there is tiny, but there is a payment that is received by residents that serve on our commissions, like the Planning Commission. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes.
Do they get paid? Yeah, it's $85 a meeting?
It's the same meeting pay, yes.
Yep.
Oh.
So typically, Planning Commission, I'm guessing from ZBA, it's like usually an hour and a half meeting, and the packets are
And all the prep time.
about an inch, and then you spend, I'd say, at least eight hours preparing for that meeting.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to be, because I just commented in passing that you don't get paid at all for that, and all the years that I have served on a planning commission and multiple different boards, I've never gotten paid until being on a township board, so I didn't realize that. So I just don't want to leave that comment lingering as an incorrect statement out there. So I guess you do get small stipend for your time, but
maybe you did as well where you were, and the statute hasn't passed. You might be able to go back and get your back wages.
That's what I was thinking.
The community was smaller and didn't maybe have the funding to do so, so I'm not worried about it. But
you'll take restaurant coupons. All right, so there's been a motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? All right, thank you. It carries. Item 14, the American Rescue Plan Act, which is the name given to the money being allocated from the federal government to various communities, townships, cities, et cetera, across all 50 states. Is there a motion one way or another to either accept this, to authorize the defendant to apply for it or not? Well, I'll say preliminarily, I think we've all heard roughly, at least what they're saying, the numbers are roughly $5 million would be allocated to our community. Motion to seek to accept that.
Motion to approve and accept, yes.
All right.
I thought that was
Support.
planned.
All right. I'll say that, it's the one time I've been communicated with by a certain Democrat senator's office, which I appreciated them, communicating with me, but I said, I think you're trying to take credit for the money being handed out, and while we're at it, and since we're in communication, why are we getting 1/5 as much as some other communities per resident? And there's some political speak as to why that is, but we can question the efficacy of it, the wisdom of it, the printing of money in so many different areas, but what's done is done, and the question becomes, do you just simply accept what you otherwise maybe philosophically would have opposed, and I come down on the side of accepting. I don't know about the rest of you.
Especially when we got large projects that we have to do up in the northwest quadrant when it comes to, because some of it's earmarked and a lot of it goes to, you can do water and sewer. We have quite a project on 48 that we're going to have to fund, and maybe this helps speed it up.
Did y'all read that? That was interesting what Brian's alluding to. I know it was one of the links, and I'm assuming you saw that certain categories seemed perhaps not to fit for us, but the one that seemed most obvious did seem to be infrastructure. Becky, thoughts about that? No? Quiet tonight. I'll make sure you get your...
All good.
All right.
I don't have strong feelings on this one. Keep it
All right. I want to be sure. Anyone else?
I was going to say, well, when he called you, you should have said, let me get my kids and grandkids on the phone because they'll be the ones paying this back. But yeah, it is earmarked, and it's the typical, the financially responsible townships and cities get a tiny crumb, and those that have been mismanaged and been poorly handling their finances get the rewards. Surprise, surprise. But I talked to Dan a little bit about it too, and could we use it for roads? That'd be fantastic. I think that'd probably be a stretch to say the Rona affected our roads, and we can justify it that way. But one thing that we could is, Dan had mentioned water meters are in need of replacement. And that's a big chunk of money. And that's water, so that's hard to, as long as there's no major strings attached, that's the key. So I'd like to see the fine print all said and done.
I think though, I mean, I hear Gary's voice in my head. He's not here tonight, but he's talked a lot about the costs of, I'm not going to say any of these words correctly, but basically as a contractor, he's seeing that the cost of building materials and other things are going up, and nothing is going to come back down. So, with, especially with the way that the COVID shutdowns were impacting businesses large and small, and, there's just, in a variety of ways, not just the shutdowns, but a variety of aspects to that, whole industry saw massive changes. That ripples across to other industries. And so I think what Gary has brought up is the point that, with COVID and all of that entails, costs of doing things like roads or whatever, are going to increase. So, I don't think it's a stretch to say, well, COVID didn't affect us, but it affected this. I think in reality it affected everything because our entire community, all of our projects and, everything was basically shut down. And so those costs are now, typically going to be higher. Those industries, if they're going to survive, they have to make up for what they've lost, that kind of thing. So, anyway, for what it's worth, I hear Gary, I have a feeling he would have said something on that issue if he were here, so I tried to do my best to repeat that, but.
Okay, other thoughts? Any other thoughts? All right, so motion was made and seconded to improve or to encourage the authorization through the superintendent to apply for these funds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? All right, and it carries. We come now to our second public comment period. So anyone here this evening that wishes to speak to the board may speak on any topic whatsoever, and if you spoke earlier, you may speak again as well. You're given 3 minutes. We just ask that you identify your address and your name. Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Nick Brock. I am a resident of Granville. I'm a military veteran and the executive director for Vote Common Good West Michigan. I'm here this evening as an advocate for Love in Politics, which pledges to hold public officials accountable to themselves and their communities within an ethic of love. Wittingly or unwittingly, this board has erred upon this premise. This is understandable, given that we are not well acquainted. It is, however, far from acceptable. On April 26th, the board issued a permit to the Political Action Committee, Ottawa Impact, for the upcoming Memorial Day Parade, a politically nonpartisan event. The allowance of this permit has created an appearance of impropriety rooted within conflicts of interest and thus merits public accountability. The hypothesis I wish to advance is that members of this board have a direct and or indirect personal interest with the Ottawa Impact PAC. These relationships can be linked to overt support for an online political petition called the Ottawa Declaration. These two entities are allied with each other and was duly noted in April. Quote, Ottawa Impact is a runoff of the Ottawa Declaration, end quote. Also, Ottawa Impact is the financial supporter for the Ottawa Declaration. This political amalgamation has resulted in diminished public trust for the common good. Now, the premise for which this undergirds this is the township's own code of conduct and ethics policy, wherein it specifies how public officials are to earn trust by, quote, solely advancing public interest, end quote, and, quote, should avoid creating an appearance of impropriety, end quote. In short, the participation, negotiation, execution, and issuance of the above-mentioned permit should not have happened. Last, I urge this board to review what was said and implement transparent corrective action before Memorial Day. My hope is that this board will abide by its code of conduct by honoring and respecting not only the letter of the law, but also the spirit of the law. For what you have a right to do does not equal what is right to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to comment at this time? Tim, name and address, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kitty Nagy. I live at 2407 Basswood in Jenison. I am just confused, and I'd like direction on where to go with my question. I'm very confused about yard sign regulations. I just read 24.5 in the code where yard sign, there was something redone in 2008. So regarding political signage and where yard signs can be placed, and I try very hard to follow the regulations. So I know that there was a Supreme Court ruling on this as a free speech issue with yard signs. So where do I go to find out what is current and correct is what I need.
Sure. See either Dan or myself after the meeting. We'll be happy to talk about it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the second public comment period. Item 16, discussion and general information among the board. Is there anyone who wishes to bring up a discussion point at this time?
I have one.
Sure.
Just as general information for you, my colleagues, in my role as liaison to the Jenison Historical Association, as I'm sure that you're aware, Jenison third graders, these are some pictures that I brought. Jenison third graders each spring, with the exception of last year due to the COVID shutdown, but Jenison third graders each spring participate in a unit on Jenison history. I'm a third grade mom this year, and so it has been really fun to kind of walk this journey with my daughter Tess. But as part of that unit in a typical school year, all of the third graders in Jenison go to the museum and participate in a tour of the museum and kind of an immersive experience in Jenison history. And then due to COVID protocols, this year, Jenison Public Schools is not doing any field trips, which includes the Jenison Museum tour. And so in their infinite awesomeness, the Jenison Historical Association, kind of most noteworthy, Ken Williams, who's pictured here, and Jean Court, kind of spearheaded this idea to take their museum tour and do it virtually via Zoom. For some of the buildings in the past, they have done presentations on, the different landing places along the river through Georgetown and Jenison as part of Jenison's history. There's also a puppet show that they do that gives an overview of Jenison history, as well as the museum tour, and they're offering all of these things virtually via Zoom this year. They did the original logging and river presentation early last week. On Friday, they did their museum tour in 2 segments, an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon, and then tomorrow they are doing the puppet show. And I had the distinct privilege of serving as their camera person and some behind-the-scenes tech support for their museum event on Friday. So I just thought I would show you a couple of pictures from it. So this is kind of just some screenshots from the Zoom recording, just because I wanted you to see how awesome they are. So that was Ken. This is Yvonne Williams. This is Barb. She was talking about ice boxes as the first refrigerators and how the homeowners would communicate with the ice delivery people, how much ice they needed. She was making this really real for the kids by connecting the way that icebox refrigerators work with the intro to the movie Frozen when they're cutting the large blocks of ice on the river. We can do the next picture. Down in the basement of the museum, they have some large drawings, but then Ken was pointing out here how some of the lumber that they have the pieces of in the museum, like where those would have been in the old mill. And Jean was up in the attic, was talking, of course, about the crooked chimney up in the attic. I don't know if you can see right near his elbow, there's a plumb bob that hangs straight down, and you can see how the chimney is crooked, as well as this original gas pump that was in historic Jenison. Linda was talking about the dairy farms and how you could get milk bottles at the original Bursley school. So she was talking to the children about how milk didn't used to come in these cartons, but it used to come in these glass jars. And so then I snapped this photo of them at the end of the afternoon session. Linda had left for the day, but the other historical association people were there. They also sent home with all of the 3rd graders a pencil that says Jenison Historical Association, as well as this handout that is a special ticket for a free tour of the museum, trying to encourage students to then bring their families to do an in-person tour. I just think that for this group's technology literacy, this was a really big leap for them, but their passion for Jenison history certainly shines through. As a 3rd grade mom, I was excited to know my kid was watching it in her classroom. As a board member and somebody who cares about Jenison history, I was excited to know that hundreds of 3rd graders, were watching this in their classroom. And then hopefully it will get some foot traffic through the museum for their summer open houses. So I just wanted to kind of share with you guys that this had happened and what an honor it is to serve as their liaison. So thanks for giving me that posting, and just wanted to celebrate them a little bit. So.
Becky, if someone wanted to watch their Zoom, would they?
3rd grade teacher, like the 3rd grade level team leader teacher who is at Sandy Hill, I think, Mr. Mosher, he recorded the Zoom session and then shared it out with the other 3rd grade teachers in case there was a class that had specials at the time, or, for it overlapped with their lunch or recess or something, and so they had to watch it on delay. So I'm certain that I could connect someone with the recording, but right now it's kind of being stored internally within JPS and shared among teachers.
Cool.
Isn't that cool?
Cool.
I'm really jealous.
I like that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job.
That's neat.
Oh, and shout out to our library, to Rob, because there isn't internet at the museum, and multiple hours on Zoom is pretty data intensive, right? If somebody were to do it from their own personal cell phone data. And so Rob connected us with a hotspot that they had at the library, checked it out to us so that we could connect devices and have internet at the museum to make it all happen. So
Great.
It was an exciting time in the Jenison Historical Association.
Great. Becky, could something like this be put on WCET or modified, or maybe they could do a program down there sometime? Just a thought.
I think that would be cool. I think that the Historical Association would be open to it.
Last year, when school was virtual in March, April, May, some of the third grade teachers included some Jenison history in their home learning plans. And so the museum had done a recorded tour on their YouTube channel, and so that does exist, but it could certainly be a cool way to partner with WCET. They were excited to do it via Zoom this time because they did a live question and answer session at the end, where the different classrooms around the district were taking turns unmuting themselves, and then you heard the teacher say to the kid, pull your mask down and lean in close to the microphone. It was just hilarious every time. But the students had an opportunity to ask questions live, and then those fine people had the opportunity to answer them, and the two-way cross-generational dialogue is just so cool, you know?
You know, when these people pass, there's going to be a big hole there. And I think capturing them on video could be really special if it was.
Absolutely. I hadn't done the tour since, like the official third grade tour in 30 years, since I was a third grader. And so it was just fun to relive my youth, I guess, too. Good things.
Thank you. Any other general information from the board?
I have a comment. Not so much fun, exciting information as that, but something that I think is really important. There's a comment made about governmental transparency and the need to avoid the appearance of impropriety. That's actually very important to me. Nobody was here from the public in person that day, so I know none of you were here, but maybe some of you might have seen the meeting we had last Monday when we did our goal setting session. And as a township, we wanted to set out goals for what, projects essentially we would take, what direction we would take for the township over the next period of time. And for me, the one that I suggested and felt very passionate about was transparency, governmental transparency as a township. So I very much appreciate any comments made or thoughts about concerns shared on that topic. And so to that extent, I don't want it to be another thing that just goes unaddressed or avoided. Specifically, the comment is about, I think it was called the Ottawa Declaration, which, if I'm remembering the wording of that, would be something that I, in fact, signed. I didn't know of the connection between the Ottawa Declaration and the request for doing a parade before coming to the meeting, or I don't even think I made the total connection before voting. But quite honestly, that doesn't change what we need to do, what we're required to do. In fact, the Ottawa Declaration, albeit I haven't read it in maybe 3 months, but it is essentially it came out of something our state representative came and presented a letter to us January, I think Luke Meerman came, and essentially was asking, I'm going to paraphrase this all wrong, I'm sure, but essentially was asking us to actively support and defend the Constitution and have all branches, hold all branches accountable and at all levels. And that's probably the most generic way that I could paraphrase that. But that is something, there's a comment or a good point that was made that just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean it is the right thing to do. But to sign that, it shouldn't be a Democrat or Republican thing or a Libertarian. It shouldn't be a political thing to actively support and defend the Constitution. It's not something we just simply have a right to do, but it is something we have a duty to do because we each took an oath. So any individual, any group has a right protected by the First Amendment to free speech, petition, peaceably assemble, etc. And we can't get in the way of that because we don't agree with that person requesting, or because we do agree with that. Our opinion, our personal opinions on that are irrelevant. It's not about us. When somebody's making a request to exercise a First Amendment protected activity, the right to participate in the First Amendment protected activity, that request is about the people, the person making that request. So whether it's a political issue I would agree with or not, or whether it's not political at all, although everything's pretty much deemed political these days, anything, if there's an individual or a group that's requesting to utilize a public space the same way anybody else would be able to use it, or to have a parade, or I'm not thinking of any other ideas, but essentially the point is the same. We need to, we have a duty to get out of the way of anybody who is exercising one of those rights, and our personal opinion on it needs to be set aside. Everyone needs to be encouraged and understand that it's our job to get out of the way of the exercising of those rights. So I just wanted to make sure that we are we're remembering that, because it wasn't that long ago when we had some big misinformation that created this whole fire within the community for a period of time, especially at some meetings and certainly on social media about our road issue and road plan, and the misinformation that was sent out, especially that was put into some flyers by residents that looked like they came from us. That misinformation, I think, is what hurt the people more than any decision that we made or discussed at a meeting. So that's, I guess, the one thing that I want to do is number one, I appreciate all of you who come, even if you don't say anything. Certainly I appreciate all of you who spoke on any issue. Definitely, sir, I appreciate anybody who feels passionate about transparency and government accountability. Although I don't agree with the application in this particular instance, I do sincerely appreciate anybody who's going to advocate for that topic in the way that they sincerely believe is the most appropriate. So, at any rate, that's something I just felt like we needed to put out there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Anyone else before we close here?
After that, I mean.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So is there no, that's all right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move. Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.